The anticipation is real. Fantasy season is back. Commissioners are emerging from their slumbers like cicadas. Managers are arguing about draft plans. And guess what? We've been here the whole time, waiting and anticipating your return. We're going to help you find some undervalued receivers and tight ends tonight on the Rod Pod. It's time to pull up a chair and talk some Dynasty football. I am your host, Jake Jay Wenner, and this Rider Dynasty podcast. With me are my co-hosts, Jamison Hutchinson and Joe Harlow. And tonight on the show, we are talking about some undervalued players who you can grab in the late rounds of your drafts. Now, our friend Jamison here just participated in a huge tournament this week. Can you tell the riders about it, young man?
I can. So over in Bowling Green, Kentucky, they have the Southern Bluegrass Fantasy Football Championship. I headed over Friday night, did just a regular snake, and then woke up at 8. Had to be there at 8 o'clock for an auction that lasted 4 hours. I don't know if anybody has done a live auction, but is pretty thrilling, but gave me a huge headache afterwards. I need to be better about saving my money. I learned that money management is a little more crucial. And then I played in the main event. It's got, I believe, 256 players. It's my second year doing it. Dr. Brian Harwood runs a really awesome event. So if anybody's in the Midwest wants to head over there, Joey Wright, Joe Bryant from Football Guys were there. A lot of bigwigs. So a lot of people playing. It's just an awesome time. Good food, drinks, just the whole 9 yards. Like I said, I highly recommend it. Check it out. And I think he's got events all year long. So it's got something a little bit for everybody.
And were there any Lucador masks?
There was not. They had, I wish there was. I should have brought my own, but there was a wrestling shirt. I wore mine just like I do every day that ends in Y. But other than that, no luchador mask on this go around.
All right. And not only that, but the IDP Plus Invitational is live. Joe, what is going on with that?
Yeah, so this is the 5th annual one that we've done with IDP Plus. Third one for me goes to support autism awareness. There is a link in the description, or there should be, or just if you go to IDP Plus website, on the banner to the right, there is a tab for it where you can donate and learn a bit more. But this is Scott Fishbowl mirrored league, but also adds IDP, thus because IDP Plus. So the draft started yesterday and they've been going pretty well so far. If anyone cares, my team is Kyler Murray, Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison, and Devon Achane so far after a couple brutal snipes so far in the first few rounds.
I was lucky enough to draft my favorite quarterback of the year, Anthony Richardson, Saquon Barkley, and Garrett Wilson. So I'm pretty amped for my start, looking to see what happens. And, once school starts, it's harder for me to draft. Like I get a little crankier. So yikes. I was in a building today that did not have cell reception anywhere. You know how maddening that is? Oof. Anyway. Oh.
Sean, my league mate, Sean.
Oh, very nice, Sean. Well, I am not sure, but before are you guys hearing that feedback? I'm not sure what's going.
It's Teague's Tips.
Sean Teague here, and this week's tip is to help you win your fantasy draft. Now, it doesn't matter if it's an auction or redraft or dynasty. Whatever the league, the secret to success is the same. All you gotta do is draft the players that are going to score the most points at each position. Hope this helps. Back to you, JJ.
All right. Well, I wasn't really sure what was going on there. Thanks, Sean, for I'm not sure how that got in there, but I apologize. And before we move on, let me go check in with our corporate overlords. And if you haven't checked out the new IDP Plus website, you are missing out. The team did a complete overhaul. And when I say team, pretty much just mean Nate by himself. But Nate did a complete overhaul of the website, and it is running beautifully. So head over to idpplus.com after the show. Check out the website, take advantage of the special membership offers, and start your march towards fantasy football greatness today. The link and details are in the show description. All right, gentlemen. Last week, we welcomed our friend Rachel to the pod to talk about quarterbacks and running backs. Make sure you go back and check out that episode. But tonight, we are starting with wide receivers, and my directions were clear. Give me 3 wide receivers ranked outside of the top 100 players that you think will pay dividends this season. First up is Joe.
Alrighty, so we're going to go back to the rookie well here. For this exercise, typically want to stay away from rookies, but there's one in particular who's just looking great. He's been looking great throughout preseason and has answered a lot of pre-draft questions I had for him. That is the Jaguars wide receiver 1, Brian Thomas Jr. He has had a quiet start to camp, but over the past few weeks, Christian Kirk has had those, I think, hamstring injuries again, something lower body popping up again. And Thomas has been looking spectacular. Now, one of the things with him at LSU is that he really only ran hitches, flies, and slant routes. It's pretty much all he did. And he was great at those. He had almost 1,000 yards on just those routes. So, but with the limited route tree, it's like, what is this guy really going to be? Now he's shown, I know he had this past week a comeback route that looked like an 8-year vet ran it. And if he's throwing stuff like that out there already, I think there's a legit chance he's going to be ready immediately. And it might have just been an LSU offense thing or a Jaden Daniels thing. Had to get that little barb in there because, yeah, anywho. But Thomas going, even dynasty-wise, right now he is at wide receiver 32 for dynasty, which for a first-round receiver is very surprising. Some of the other names that are ahead of him was shocked to hear just how far back he is from Rome Odunze, who I love and had a bit higher than Thomas Jr. in the draft. He's wide receiver 18 versus 32. That's a huge gap in ADP for those guys, despite only being 14 spots apart in the real draft. 14 for both. But anyway, Thomas Jr., who's also going late in redraft leagues, wide receiver 49, 122 overall. This is type in your start of your 11th round. If you could get Trevor Lawrence as wide receiver 1, I think that could be an absolute steal. Someone who could, it might still take a few weeks. We saw it with, don't read too much into the name, but Justin Jefferson, who started really slow. I think it was really week 3, week 4 before he started breaking out. And something like that could happen again with Brenton Thomas. We see it a lot with rookie wide receivers where they take a few weeks. But if he does truly end up being wide receiver 1, and especially on a team with Christian Kirk, who's a solid receiver at worst, Evan Ingram, who's a solid receiver at worst, I think there's a chance that he could really be the guy who takes the top off the defense and adds that dynamic threat they were hoping to get in Calvin Ridley last year. But he's bigger, stronger, and faster than Ridley is at this point. So really could just be a vast improvement over that.
Yeah, and Ridley probably is more suited for the slot where hopefully he's going to end up this year with Tennessee. And that's not really what Jacksonville was using him for last year.
Really, they were using Ridley as their pure X receiver, which he's not that. He's a great receiver, but he's not an X. Brian Thomas is the legit X outside ball winner.
All right. Love that. So we have Brian Thomas Jr. Jamison, who is your first undervalued wide receiver?
I think it's a guy who is way undervalued compared to last year. So I'm going to go with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. 20th overall pick 2 years ago. Seemed like everybody was really excited about him, but kind of realized the situation last year was not great. Shane Waldron ran a lot of 2 tight end sets. Tyler Lockett was playing a whole lot. Even though that Lockett only had 16 more receptions than JSN last year, I think a lot of people think that gap was much larger. I think that Jaxon Smith-Njigba takes that over this year. And then last year, he kind of started off on a wrong foot. He had dealt with a hand injury, kind of leaked into the regular season. And then, like I said, now that all the random tight ends in Seattle are gone, Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly, the last one left's really Noah Fant. But I just think it sets up really nicely for him. I think the new offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, coming from Washington, he just kind of has the grip it and rip it mentality. And he's got a guy with Geno Smith who really likes to play aggressive, be vertical. And I think it really sets up nicely for not only Jaxon Smith-Njigba, but DK Metcalf. and the offense as a whole, just as long as Geno can stay upright. So I think he's a very easy wide receiver too that I think is going really underlooked. And I think that there is a range of outcomes, just like I talked about last week, that he could be the wide receiver one in Seattle if things go his way. So I want to bet on these, year two breakout wide receivers. It seems like a lot of people are scared from last year and don't really want to click on him this year. And I want to take advantage of that. And I think this is a perfect candidate to do it. So just really in on Jaxon Smith-Njigba and just Seattle's offense as a whole this year.
All right. Pick. I was really hoping someone else would grab him, and very happy you did, Jamison.
I've been taking a lot of JSN. I am excited to see his ascent this year, especially in an offense that becomes a little bit more modern. Maybe 3 wide receivers every once in a while might be nice, might improve the usage. Hey, listen.
Gonna let him work over the middle where he is the best at. And that's where Geno loves to throw. He loves those aggressive over the middle throws, intermediate range. And I think those big boy routes are what JSN has always excelled at. What made Brian Hartline say he was the best receiver he's coached at Ohio State, at least pre-Marvin Harrison. But still, there are some great names there. So
that's Chris Olave. I believe it was Garrett Wilson. We're talking about how JSN was the best Ohio State wide receiver. And it just seems like all of that. Last year, everybody was really in on him, even though he was going to be the wide receiver 3, and people knew that. And now that they got burned, they just don't want to click him. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I think they went one way last year, and the market is overcorrected. I'm trying to meet right in the middle, and I think he's a perfect candidate.
Absolutely.
If you can find that inefficiency in the market, that's where you attack, right? All right. Well, I guess that leaves my turn. I was a little confused with which way to go here. I'm a pretty risk-averse guy. If you know me, not a bungee jumper. I'm not going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I want my late round targets to be like the second or third option in a passing attack. I get going out there and drafting the 5th target on a high-powered offense. But for the most part, I want volume. So there is a receiver who's going as a low-end wide receiver 4 with an ADP of 117, who I think will easily outperform his draft position. Now, Courtland Sutton is my choice as an undervalued target. Now, with the surprising preseason of Bo Nix, and I think we're all kind of surprised at how efficient he has been. No, Joe's not, but he can
efficient, but nothing real.
You don't think it's going to be real? You don't think he can do that as a regular quarterback?
I mean, I think he can check the ball down and make easy throws pretty well, but he has not done a single thing that really makes me think he's a legit upside starter.
So I will say, as a Jets fan, seeing anybody who can actually complete a pass, a check down, a short pass over the middle, if that is going to be their offense. But Sean Payton is used to running in the late career Drew Brees. I think that Courtland Sutton has a chance to get some points here, right? He is obviously going to be the wide receiver 1 in Denver. At least I think it's obvious. And outside of an injury-plagued 2020 year, Sutton has never had less than 700 yards receiving. Last year, with that putrid QB play, he put up 59 catches for 777 yards with 10 TDs, and he finished as the wide receiver 35. I believe this year his yardage is going to creep closer to 1,000 with Nix under center. And even if he just does what he did last year, he will easily beat his ADP of wide receiver 48. If you can get the wide receiver for a team this late in your draft, you have to do it, right?
I think I'm a little more higher on. I know Joe's going to poo-poo all over it, but I think Bo Nix will be a whole lot better than Russell Wilson. So, and it's already kind of came out that Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin don't seem to be doing all that hot in training camp. And outside that, you got Tim Patrick, who I really liked, but has been injured the last couple of years, has never been able to really see the field. And then you got Greg Dulcich, the tight end. Just kind of leaves Courtland Sutton kind of right there for the taking.
Hey, don't forget Josh Reynolds.
Josh Reynolds.
Hey, listen, I love Tim Patrick. I had so much Tim Patrick last year.
Happy he's playing.
I'm happy he's playing too, and he actually looks like he's back. He's looked like he's making some moves, like he can cut. I just hope he is back. I don't have any Tim Patrick this year. Obviously, I'm making a bad decision because I had him when he didn't play, and now that he's playing, I don't. But
So really, JJ's picking Tim Patrick, right?
no, Courtland Sutton, you stop. You stop, Joe.
And I will say, I'm not a Knicks believer at all for real NFL, but I do think he can support a couple fantasy options with the Sean Payton offense.
Well, I appreciate your support.
Yeah. And I mean,
Just
I think
a
another
tiny
thing to
bit.
bring up, Jerry Jeudy isn't there, who has been up and down, to put it kindly, but he still garnered a lot of targets. He still deserved to have a lot. So I think not having them go that way, I think will be good for Sutton.
100% agree. All right, let's move on to our second choices. Joe, who is your number 2?
So a lot of times, like with the Bo Nix conversation, I will kind of get stuck on a player who I didn't love as a draft prospect or just don't necessarily think is that great or think is super great and will love. This is not one of those. This is the opposite. Joshua Palmer is someone who I've really struggled with. Have never thought he's been a very good receiver. I think I had a 6th round grade on him out of Tennessee, and someone who still has been fine. He's garnered a lot of targets. He's been a very dirty work Romeo Doubs type receiver, but he's probably the one in Los Angeles right now. Ladd McConkey's been injured again, which is kind of just how it goes with him. Yeah. Ladd will be dynamic when he's healthy, but how many games will that be? Guess we'll find out in 20 weeks or so. But Palmer has been really solid with Justin Herbert, and having an elite quarterback definitely helps. If he's the number one receiver, especially so many play fakes, after Mike Williams got hurt last year, he was average on pace for, I think, 85-ish catches and 1,100 yards. To get that at wide receiver 57, I think there's so much more upside than a wide receiver 6 there. I really don't see a way unless he gets hurt, that he isn't a top 40 wide receiver. It's probably even closer to top 30 than 40. So again, he's the number one receiver for what I think is a top 5 quarterback in the league. So even if there's not going to be 45 passes a game, their defense isn't good. So they are going to be throwing a lot more than we think. And having a healthier run game than they've ever had with Justin Herbert is only going to open up more play action shots and open up the field more for him to make some plays. And a volume target, if he can get 90 catches, I mean, it's almost a guaranteed 1,000 yards, and that's going to put you well over wide receiver 57.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like Palmer just because of the situation. I like Herbert this year. I think he's going to see a bounce back. I know everybody's writing off that entire offense because they don't think that Harbaugh is going to pass enough. It's an NFL offense. His offenses have always passed. I mean, maybe not like a Mahomes offense, but he still passed the ball quite a bit.
And even still, you're seeing the Chiefs run a lot more now than any point. And I think it just makes sense for them to do. It's what Harbaugh did with Andrew Luck. Mm-hmm. It's like Harbaugh's not an idiot. So he's going to use his golden armed quarterback. He may be weird, but he's not an idiot.
That is a fair statement. Jamison, who is also not weird or an idiot. Who is your second choice?
I want to go with the wide receiver 1 in Buffalo with Khalil Shakir. So I know there's a lot of random wide receivers to try to decipher through, but you got Curtis Samuel, who is already hurt. Keon Coleman, the rookie, hasn't seemed to do a whole lot of wowing up in Buffalo so far. And I just think, especially towards the end of the year last year, Khalil Shakir really started to step it up a little bit. So I really like him. He played over 90% in the slot last year. I think that changes a little bit with the new pieces, but he does a lot of really good stuff underneath. He's really good yards after the catch. And I just think that he'll end up leading the Bills, with receptions and yards as far as the wide receiver goes. I know we have talked about Dalton Kincaid. That's kind of part of the situation. But as far as the wide receiver 1, I think it's Khalil Shakir. I think you're getting a really good discount. And I liked him a lot. Like I said, last year, I thought he did some good stuff, especially took last 2 or 3 games. I think he had over 160 yards combined and a couple touchdowns. So with Gabe Davis gone, Stephon Diggs, there's a lot of volume to open up, and I think he kind of fits the bill. So I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir here.
Fits the bill. I see what you did there, buddy.
Unintentional. Be
I'm
quite
gosh darn, I'm proud of you there. I know Craig Reith is listening. I know he's impressed as well. There we go. Why can't we ride and Dynasty? Why do we really have to? No, you don't have to. You can do both, Craig. You can do both. What's amazing with your pick of Khalil Shakir is that all three of those receivers fell into this category, right? Like Keon Coleman is what? Wide receiver 46, Curtis Samuel 51, and Khalil Shakir is 50. So one of those is going to be wrong.
Yep. But one of the best quarterbacks in football, I just would like to pair a wide receiver with him. So one of these guys is going to be a value. I'm just going to throw my dart on Shakir and hope it sticks.
Yeah, it seems similar to the Palmer argument. I know that's why I've had Kincaid so high. JJ, I know you're not Khalil Shakir wide receiver one believer.
I am not. I would go more Curtis Samuel, but he's hurt. So I have been unbanging that drum. If he's going to be hurt again, what are we supposed to do with the guy who's always hurt? I know there's no such thing as injury prone, but whew. Oh, phew. Yeah. I don't know if he's fewing what I just said or that he can do both, but I appreciate that, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
You know what? Before we get to our final target, let's check in with one of our favorite sponsors. And it's draft season, folks, as the home leagues emerge from their slumbers. Frustrated commissioners are trying to organize draft day. Why not take one part of that nightmare off of your plate and order Trophy Smack's gorgeous draft boards, complete with player stickers so deep.
So deep.
One day we'll get that right, and it'll be right after we don't do this ad anymore. Yep. So deep, you couldn't possibly use them all. And for the first time, Trophy Smack is offering an IDP expansion pack for all of us defensive degenerates out there who play an IDP league. So no more scribbling names on blank stickers. Go to Trophy Smack and get the only draft board that meets all of your needs. Check out the link in the show notes and get yours today. All right, gentlemen, it is time for our final undervalued wide receiver. Joe, you are going to go first once again.
All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of a smuggle here. Shocker, I'm sure. I'm going to go with two receivers that have pretty similar outlook. I know you guys just can't contain your shock, but that is Jalen Tolbert of the Cowboys and Cedric Tillman of the Tennessee formerly of the Tennessee Volunteers.
Oh, geez. Look at you.
Now of the, I don't know where that, Cleveland Browns. Goodness. Totally just retro to our drafts coverage there. Anywho, flustered myself a little bit. So both of these guys went into last season as the wide receiver 4-ish and now have a chance. They're locked in as the wide receiver 3 is what it's looking like. Tillman seems to have beat out Elijah Moore to be wide receiver 3, and Tolbert, there just really isn't much else there. And both have been receiving a lot of hype from camp. Tolbert especially, there is a thought he could end up being wide receiver 2 with Brandon Cooks being older, more injury prone as he's gotten older. And he has lost a step, unfortunately, no matter how much we love. Yeah, very much so. But
so deep.
Very much. And a big part of this is Jalen Tolbert's currently going as wide receiver 87, and Cedric Tillman is going, scrolling, wide receiver 176.
To quote Limp Bizkit, keep scrolling.
Yeah. And I'll say we know how deep I go with draft coverage, and the two guys ahead of Tillman I have never heard of, though I think one is Puka's brother.
Bob Nakua?
Samson.
Oh, no, I got that.
And then Dalen Baldwin. Never heard of them. But I think there's a real chance Tillman ends up as wide receiver 2. They did give Jerry Jeudy a bag, but we mentioned it with Courtland Sutton. He's been so up and down. He has not been a consistent player, not nearly what a lot of draft experts thought he was going to be. And Tillman he's a big body receiver, and Deshaun Watson right now, he just kind of needs someone he can throw the ball to and they can make a play. I think that has that in Amari Cooper, David Njoku, and then Tillman as a third receiving option, I think could really explode. You don't even need to draft him right now. I think he's someone you can watch on your waiver wire. Even in Dynasty, he is wide receiver 89. So I think you probably don't even need to draft him in your Dynasty startup leagues, but he's someone who on waivers, I think you can pick up. And does he turn into anything? There's a chance he doesn't. I had a first round grade on him 2 years ago. It's what he did to Georgia and Alabama with, I think, back-to-back 200-yard receiving weeks as a junior before missing his almost all of his senior year with an injury. He looks like a legit X, even outside of that Mickey Mouse offense they run in Tennessee. Tolbert, I loved out of South Alabama. He has another year of experience, but being a non-Power 5 guy, I think he needed that extra year. So I really think they're on a similar level of development. And for a lot of non-elite level wide receivers, you need that year 3 breakout. That's really when it starts. I think you could really see that, especially guys not going in the top 200 of your drafts. Why not take a shot and you could hit big? If Jalen Tolbert ends up as Dak Prescott's third option, I think you could see 900 yards out of him. I don't think you can really see that out of anyone else lower on the list or near him on that list. Tyler Boyd's not going to do that, who's a few spots ahead of him. These are pure upside shots on talents I believed in.
So, Joe, when you pointed out that Cedric Tillman, how low he was on the list, how low? I'll tell you how low. Willie Snead, Philip Dorsett, and Jamison Crowder are all ranked right around him. That's pretty low. But somebody who jumped out to me around that range, Xavier Gibson.
Yeah, your guy.
Man, that's very low for somebody who's going to get peppered with a lot of targets this year.
Yep. Gibson's going to fit in here too.
I mean, 178. That's very low. So he's going to beat that by at least 120.
Probably.
All right. Wait. Is it my turn? No, it's Jamison's turn.
I can go.
You can go. What do you have, Jamison?
I'm not digging that far in the dumpster, but I will go with Josh Downs.
You?
No disrespect, but yeah, I love Jamison Crowder. Even though we spell our names different, he was the man back in the day. But
and he's on the Commanders now.
Yeah, left hand up. Who are we?
He was a Jet
for a little bit, yeah.
But anyways, we'll go back. Josh Downs, you're all good. From weeks 1 through 9, before he sustained like an ankle injury that kind of lingered the rest of the year, he kind of quietly cooked. The end of the year, he ended up with 68 receptions and 771 yards. I know a lot of that was with Gardner Minshew, but I really like the offense this year. I thought him and Anthony Richardson had a little bit of rapport for the couple games that they did play. He's only 5'9", but I mean, he plays like a Vincent Jackson 6'5". He's very good with contested catches. He's a great route runner. He absolutely smokes man coverage. I think he's one of the better wide receivers in the league, to be quite honest, even in his second year. And then he's got the injury. I think he might even miss week 1, but he'll come back fully healthy. And then I think this offense is going to be really fun. And even though he might have some spike weeks, I think he'll have definitely more than 2 touchdowns than he did last year. So I really like Josh Downs. I know he's got a little bit of competition with Adonai Mitchell and Michael Pittman, but I really like the price point. I like the upside. Anybody who's paired with Shane Steichen, I want a piece of. So I'm going to go with Josh Downs here. I think he's one of the more underrated wide receivers, and I think we can buy a little bit of the dip right now.
To interject there a little bit, I know as a prospect, Ben Solak, now with ESPN, tweeted about it. I tried to do a quick search and couldn't find it. But Downs, I think, had the best contested catch rate amongst all like the legitimate wide receiver prospects last year. No, it was almost double that of Quentin Johnson's.
Yep, and I think he's top 3 in. He doesn't drop any footballs, so I think he's like top 3 in basically that range too. So, like I said, I think he's really underrated. I'm not going to scream that he's going to surpass Michael Pittman because I think Michael Pittman's very good, but they were kind of neck and neck. I know it's kind of hard to look back just because Anthony Richardson was here, then he was gone for a little bit, and he kind of bounced around. But kind of comparing those numbers, they were pretty similar for the time that Anthony Richardson was on the field.
Well, Jamison, you were
First
not
3
alone.
games, he had 15 catches on 24 targets.
Yeah,
Not bad.
The games with
last night on the All Out Blitz with Doug Orth, He talked a lot about Josh Downs and said very similar things, that he thinks he will be the number one receiver and put up more targets. Maybe not more targets, but more yards than Pittman in the end.
I don't think that's crazy. And anytime I compare myself with Doug, I will, because he's the man. Shout out to Doug. But I don't want to say it's hot takey, but I mean, I could definitely see the scenario. I mean, Anthony Richardson really liked him. So it's very small sample size, but I don't know if I can keep blabbering on about Josh Downs, but
you don't have to.
I really like him.
Question for you is, I know we talked about it with Josh Palmer and Courtland Sutton that, Khalil Shakir, that their secondary receivers have been hurt a lot. Is that worrying you at all about Downs?
Not really. I think Downs is a different kind of prototype than those guys. I think those guys are more low floor or high floor, low ceiling. Excuse me. And I think Josh Downs actually has a ceiling to him. So, like I said, he somehow 5'9". He's a great route runner, but he also is great contested catch. So it seems like he's a very well-rounded wide receiver.
And just a little dynasty IDP degenerateness here. His little brother, Caleb Downs, is a true sophomore at Ohio State this year. Next, for 2026, when he is draft eligible, early 101 for IDP. He's going to be the top prospect in the draft, most likely. As after a true freshman season, he already has a purple trip grade for me, which is like generational type talent.
What position?
Safety. He's a box safety. He led Bama in tackles as a true freshman and was always the best player on the field. Dude is a freak. He's going to be awesome.
Why doesn't my family have that run it? We have depression.
Right? Yeah, we got alcoholism and
right? Like,
right? I mean,
come on. Can't get one gene.
No. Yeah, 2026.
Genetic roulette wheel, man, and I'm double zeros every time. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. 2026 IDP leagues. Caleb Downs.
All right.
He's going to be a Kyle Hamilton level prospect, if not better.
Your mouth to my IDP ears. All right, so I'm up. Times have changed. Times are strange. Here I come, but I ain't the same. Mama, I'm coming home. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles became a team that couldn't quite find their way. I'm not sure what happened. There's a lot of blame floating around. Supposedly nobody's talking. Of course, it's Nick Sirianni. Not to point fingers, but what I do know is that they were constantly searching for a reliable third target behind A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Goddard is always next in line. This is his breakout year. Oh, I know. Never quite happens, right? Swift came in for a cup of coffee, and like everywhere else, nobody wants him, so they send him on his way. Watkins, Zacchaeus, and Jones sound more like a production studio than they do like productive receivers. So today, Howie Roseman goes out and does what he does and lands Jahan Dotson from the Commanders, bringing him back home to PA. Our local Nazareth boy has returned to the Keystone State to reclaim his glory. Now, I understand that he is going to be possibly the fourth option behind the star receivers in Barkley. But he gives the Birds a legit third receiver for the first time in years. Has he been great so far? No. But either have the Commanders, right? If we're being honest, the Commanders have been a bit of a poop show lately, right? No coaching. Nobody's getting better. And after a solid rookie season, we saw that he disappointed us last year. And that's great news for us. Because when players disappoint, they fall in drafts. And then you can scoop them up and count your riches. Profit, right? So if he can regain his rookie year usage with his sophomore volume, we should see him easily outperform his ADP of 192 and wide receiver 67. Now, Joe, I know you have some things to say.
Yeah, I'm more a wide receiver 67. First, got to say that's still a good value. I don't think he's going to see a lot of snaps. I don't think he's coming in to be the wide receiver 3. I think he's coming to be AJ Brown's backup or Devonta Smith's backup, which, yes, those are two different things. I think, and then also target distribution. There's Goddard, who frustrating guy who's just such a good football player, but just fantasy, he's right on the edge of haves or have-nots at tight end.
Yep.
But Dotson, what they really have always needed is more than a third receiver. They needed like a dynamic dirty work guy. They needed Romeo Dubs. He had another shout out today for some reason. But one of those guys who's going to make some catches over the middle, who's going to block his ass off, and who's really going to just is big enough and powerful enough to move around the formations and such. I love Dotson as a prospect. I think he can still be a legitimate wide receiver 2 and second weapon for a good offense. But here in Philly, I really don't think he's going to get a lot of targets. I think he is just in case AJ Brown or Devonta Smith gets hurt. And I think they're just going to throw out, even if it's Johnny Wilson, who's just massive. I did not like him as a prospect, but he does have the ability to potentially get in the way of defenders on run plays. And Jalen Hurts running still has to be accounted for. Saquon. I don't see a way to where he really has a lot of fantasy success this year, which breaks my heart. But dynasty-wise, I think he's a massive buy, but also curious, do you think his ADP goes up or down after this trade? I could really see either way.
I would think it has to go up. Only because even if you just base it off of bad fantasy play, there's not a lot of Commanders fans, and there's a lot more Eagles fans.
That's fair.
So even just by their drafts, it should go creep up. But I could see it easily moving up. Don't you? Or do you think it's going to drop?
I don't know. I could honestly, I would not be surprised either way. I guess I would assume it goes up, but going from wide receiver 2 to 3 is, I don't know.
Yeah, but being a wide receiver 2 with, and I know I'm going to I think Jalen Hurts his passing has surpassed being a mobile quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say Jaden Daniels as a mobile quarterback, I am concerned about him hitting his second and third targets. Like I always get same thing with running backs with a mobile, are they going to get the dump offs that other running backs get? Or, is the quarterback just going to run? So I'm a little bit more nervous about Dotson when he was on the Commanders than I am now with the Eagles. You have brought up a lot of good points, and I listen to reason. I might disagree with reason, but listen, we need our pipe dreams here in Pennsylvania.
Dotson had the Penn State thing. Every show has to come up. Penn State lack of development. He needed to go somewhere with good coaching, and this wasn't a thing in Washington, and still isn't. But
and it might not be in Philly, but we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see what happens. All right, gentlemen, let's finish with some tight ends now. For the tight end position, my expectations were clear. I said, let's pick guys going after pick 100. But then I noticed that there are still top 12 tight ends who haven't got off the board at pick 100. So we moved even further down the list. And so we're looking for 2 tight ends drafted in the 14th round or later. That's late. First up is Joe.
So I'm going to go with a former first-round pick, Noah Fant for the Seahawks. We've been, I think, are the Seahawks this podcast team this season? It might be, but
it's definitely
I think we're all in on their offense. I've always loved Noah Fant as a talent. I think he's still a very good player, though he obviously has not lived up to being a first round pick, top 25 pick, if I remember correctly. In this offense, I think, especially if Tyler Lockett does continue to take some steps back athletically and just overall as a player, I think there is a chance he ends up being the third target. One of the most frustrating things with him the past few seasons was Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson, both of whom are now in Los Angeles, different teams, and Fant is really the only relevant tight end on the roster. So I think snap-wise, he should see more. And he still is a dynamic after the catch player, still a good route runner, good hands. And at what is he at? Tight end 25?
Pick 229.
Yeah, I would take a solid tight end early. And if you just need one other upside shot later, like if you pair him with a Travis Kelce, who are they just going to have him on a snap count? Or is he going to miss some more games? Just if he's a little bit banged up like week 1 last year, I think Noah Fant, someone who you can plug in and just expect a boom week. I don't think he's going to be a tight end 1 or really sniff top 15, but I think he's going to outproduce tight end 25. And in the 14th round, I'll take the shot on him for sure.
Well, he's
Love
well
Geno.
past the 14th.
Yeah.
He's probably going undrafted in a lot of drafts.
Yeah. And I like pairing tight ends and upside shots with a quarterback and an offense I like. Love Ryan Grubb's offense, and we know I love Geno. So
you do love Geno.
I do.
Been meaning to talk to you about that. All right, Jamison. Who do you have as your undervalued tight end?
I'm going to go with Noah Fant's former teammate, Colby Parkinson. So he goes down to the LA Rams, just signed for 3 years, $22 million. Tyler Higbee, 32 years old last year, ended up tearing his ACL and MCL late January and didn't have surgery until the end of February. So I don't expect him to play this year. And even if he does, I'm not sure what you can get out of him. The main thing with Colby Parkinson for me, he is in like the Seahawks tight end room where they stored a bunch of talented guys, then none of them ever broke out. And now they finally all have parted ways and kind of find themselves in good roles. So he goes with Sean McVay, who's a former tight ends coach, who's a great run blocker. And we know that they're going to set up Kyron Williams in the run game first and kind of play off play action. That's what, Matt Stafford has done really well with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So the only other competition he's got is Davis Allen, who is fine. But I really like Colby Parkinson. I think, when he was in Stanford, he was a great red zone target. I mean, he's 6'7", and he's also can be a deep threat for the team. So I think that they can use him as far as a run blocker, and then if they do play action, he can break off and have those moments as well. And he's in this range where, kind of like Dalton Schultz last year or Jake Ferguson, where they just catch, 6-7 touchdowns. It kind of pays off. So as far as late dart throws go, I think that Colby Parkinson has a really high ceiling, and he finally has a chance to kind of break out by himself, where he's been just in a mix and match Russian roulette in Seattle in that tight end room.
I would say I love the pick of Colby Parkinson. I've been a fan since he left Stanford. Always had high hopes for him. However, if you're drafting Colby Parkinson, make sure you keep Davis Allen on speed dial. Yeah. All the word out of the Rams camp is that they are getting him ready for a big role in the offense. So, you always listen to beat writers. That's what the beat writers are saying, is that his participation is great. He's looking like amazing. But Davis Allen is even freer than Colby Parkinson. So draft Colby and put in that waiver wire claim right away for Davis Allen, and you can delete it if you don't need it, right?
Yeah.
I think especially in a dynasty league.
Yeah,
especially in dynasty. But Colby Parkinson sat with the starters, so it seems like he is in line with the first team, because Sean McVay does not play any of his starters in any preseason game ever. He has no time for it, doesn't want to partake in it, but it's going to be a fun offense. And I just think one of these dart throws that, he ends up in the box a couple times, it kind of pays off. And that's all we can ask for with these late round tight ends who have completely ruined my life over the last decade.
Wow. Should this turn into a therapy show? I can help you out, buddy.
Need it.
It's okay. I once said Chris Herndon was going to be the tight end 6. I might have said 5.
I feel like we were all there at one point.
It might have ended a podcast because we got into a huge fight after it. But hey, that's why we're here today. So I have to say, for my selection, I hate this pick. I do. I hate this pick. Don't laugh at me. I am a rule follower. Anybody who knows JJ knows I'm a rule follower. If you were with me at the expo, you would notice that I would walk to the crosswalk and then turn and then walk. I don't cut corners. I don't jaywalk. I don't like speeding. I like following the rules. And this choice exploits a glitch in the system. So I'm going with the glitch. I'm trying to live life on that edge, and I'm saying Taysom Hill. We should ignore following the rules and just take the glitch. He's sitting out there as tight end 21 and being drafted in the 17th round. Why is he going late? Because he's a tight end who doesn't catch any passes. So if I told you a stat line of 76 receptions for 756 yards and 11 TDs, you'd be like, that's a pretty good season. That was Courtland Sutton's last season. Well, that's Taysom Hill's career numbers for receptions. That's not good. Now, last season, though, he finished as the tight end 12 in PPR. He had 7 weeks where he finished as a top 10 tight end. Quiz time. Jamison, how many of those weeks did Kelsey have? If Hill had 7, how many did Kelsey have?
I feel like it's a trick question. Like 1.
It's not a trick question. Just take a guess.
I'll say 1.
10.
Wrong. 10. See, you got me all screwed up.
Okay, we're not going to talk to him. Jameson, how many did Kittle have?
Kittle was tight end 1, so I'll go like 11. Is that fair?
What are you talking about? Kittle wasn't tight end 1.
Overall.
Last year?
Yes.
Laporta was, I thought.
Yeah, George Kittle.
Yeah, that's what you said.
He was in tight end 1 last year.
Let me look.
Are you having a stroke? Can you smile? Hold up both hands.
Time out. Just move to Joe while I go through this real quick because.
All right, we're going to let Jamison go through whatever Jamison's going through right now.
So, JJ, you really are being a rule breaker here. I thought this was tight ends, but you took the best quarterback on the Saints roster?
Listen, the biggest
I have to clarify, I don't believe that.
The biggest difference between Hill and real tight ends is that his lows are lower. His lows, you might not get points that week. So this is a high-risk pick. But with Carr picking up the offense more in the second half of the year, maybe he can be utilized a little more frequently. Maybe with an older Kamara, we see him getting a few more carries. Last year, PFF gave him the 10th highest rushing grade of players with more than 50 touches. So I think, as much as it hurts me, he's definitely worth a late pick in your drafts. What do you think, Joe?
I don't want to, but you probably have to. I mean, looking at it, and he still had 80 rushes last year, 40 targets. If you're telling me he's going to have another 120 opportunities, I mean, Tyler Conklin's, who we've loved, is at 87 the past 3 years. This is a significant amount more, and it's gross, but it's probably, yeah.
Yeah, it is gross. It's like, no, I won't say that. It's like closing time. You have nothing left. Your options are limited. And Taysom Hill is standing there looking at you in the face, and you're like, sure, why not? Let's do this. Right? Let's take him home, put him on your roster, and see what happens. Jamison, how you doing, buddy? Are you okay?
I need to apologize.
You don't have to apologize for anything.
No, I need to because for whatever reason, just like you said at the beginning, there was a glitch. There was obviously a glitch in my brain because I'm a moron. He was tight end 5 because we're talking about Sam Laporta, which I should have known. I think I wasn't looking at the moment, but I looked at a George Kittle stat, and for whatever reason, he might have been number 1 in my heart. So
listen, and that's
wrong
all that
eye with
matters
tight
on
end.
this show.
That's all. Wrong eye.
And this is the part where I talk about where tight end has ruined my life, and this is part of it because I've made a total ass out of myself on the Rod Pod tonight. So,
you did not.
Thank you, tight ends.
I just selected Taysom Hill as my undervalued tight end. I have to leave this pod and take a shower like Jodie Foster in The Accused because I am so embarrassed and hurt and sad over what just happened to me.
We need our viewers to pray over us tonight. I think that's
we do.
I think that's all we can ask for.
Man, don't waste your prayers on us.
Did you see that Taysom Hill is also a fullback? That is the newest glitch in the system for him.
Who knows what he is? He's 57 years old, and Hill's a cheat code where he's exactly. Thank you, Jody Smith. Thank you. I need to say no more. Joe, who is your
I want to say happy birthday to Taysom Hill tomorrow.
Oh, how old is he?
34.
Jesus. That is so old. I mean,
Mormon Missile.
The what?
Per Pro Football Reference, his nickname is the Mormon Missile.
All right, Joe. Before I get
It's
into
time.
any questions with religious sects, you should go first. Who is your next tight end?
So I'm going to go with a man with luscious locks, far more luscious than my own, and that is the Broncos' Greg Dulcich. Former UCLA Bear, loved him as a prospect, had him significantly higher than Trey McBride as a prospect, but we're going to ignore that for now. When we were doing our tight end tiers episode, I know we talked a lot got very in depth on Luke Musgrave, and he's proven to be pretty good so far in the time he's been healthy. And I compared him to Greg Dulcich, or Dulcich. I keep hearing different pronunciations. I had it down, and then hearing so many, it threw me off. But the Broncos tight end, there isn't really anyone else of note in the room. Thank God Taysom Hill didn't follow Sean Payton over to Denver. Would have made me very sad. But he's not really a tight end. He's more also more of a big slot receiver. He's freaky fast. I don't know if he ended up running a 40, but tracking speed, he was one of the fastest players in college football his last year. And as tight end size, he can't block anything. But I think there's a real chance. Is there a way he's not the second target? Or how many players besides Courtland Sutton are better than him amongst the Denver's pass catchers? Like any? Maybe Tim Patrick,
Monte Williams,
who's had two,
the running back.
Maybe, yeah.
Jaleel McLaughlin,
maybe. If we're
But no, I mean, if you're saying easily who's better than him,
Yeah, I think, and we're getting him tight end 31, 273 overall. I think the talent is there. He's one who he just needs one catch and he can break a few tackles and he can have an 80-yard catch way easier than most tight ends, especially in this range. Again, I think he and Luke Musgrave are cut out of a very similar cloth. Very big seam threats. And if Sean Payton can open up the seam for him, I think Bo Nix will listen to Sean Payton and just throw it where he's told, even if it is more than 5 yards downfield. But I don't know about that. Sorry, had to get the dig in. But I really love the talent. And I'm willing to bet on that here. I don't think they're going to use some random blocking tight end over Dulcich this year. He seemed to be more back in favor. And as long as
is
he's
he
healthy,
the tight end one on that team?
Yep.
Okay. I was just looking at a depth chart and they had Adam Troutman listed ahead of him, which surprised me a little bit.
It's one of those where Troutman might be the tight end one, but he's like, it's the Colby Parkinson thing where he's the blocking tight end.
He's the line.
Troutman's a fullback.
Okay.
Playing on the end of the line.
Okay.
But Dulcich has been getting praise from Sean Payton since Payton's been there. It's just he hasn't been healthy.
Well, Sean Payton's a big jerk. I don't like him.
That's true.
But
same. He broke my heart as a child, winning that Super Bowl against my Colts.
I'm sorry. That's
buddy.
All right. I'm sorry, buddy.
Kevin James out though.
All right. So Greg Dulcich, not Dulcich.
Yes. I think it's Dulcich. I'm pretty.
Dulcich. All right. I like that.
Call somebody.
Jamison.
Before we get into our last person on my end, I had to do some deep digging.
Okay.
My George Kittle, number one. He was number one in yards overall for tight ends. I screwed up. I need to apologize to all 4 people who listen. More 40, but still.
How dare you insult us because you messed up a stat? You son of a bitch. How dare you?
They all left after I said that, and that's on me. I'm going to bring them all back. So, you blame me. But anyways, that was bothering me because I made myself look like a fool, and now everything's off the rails because of me, so it's all good. But
all right.
This is what happens when we decide to talk about tight ends. Gosh.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about tight ends.
Miserable on my end because I ruin everything. But we're going to get back on track.
You stop talking bad about yourself, Jamison.
Yeah. We're going to go with
Go
Hunter
ahead,
Henry.
buddy.
So tight end 17 last year, Hunter Henry. Former
Henry.
Charger.
All right.
Now New England Patriot. He had some of the worst quarterback play of all time. You know, McCorkle Jones, Bailey Zappi, every other person in the world who has stunk the last couple of years for the New England offense. But it's more of a high floor than kind of a ceiling guy. But, I mean, he gets Alex Van Pelt from the Cleveland Browns as offensive coordinator, who has notoriously used tight ends. When he was in Cleveland the last 4 years, they were top 10 in tight end targets all 4 years. And I know everybody's thinking about David Njoku, but really, until last year, he's always been more of a prospect that people thought he would do more and didn't always live up to the hype. And then last year he did with Joe Flacco. So, I mean, they've really tried to lean into that. Of course, some of that was the Baker Mayfield years, but I just think that Hunter Henry can get some love in this offense. I think it'll be better than it was last year, especially if Drake May starts, who I know Joe and I both like a lot. And I think he'll get used in the screen game something that they didn't do last year in New England. A lot of play action, tight end pulls, that sort of thing. Possibility he ends up as a top 2 receiver in this room. That seems very bleak and just a bunch of random guys. And then you got Javon Baker and Jalen Polk as rookies. So we'll see how that goes. But I just think Hunter Henry can end up in the box a couple times. Like I said, I think things will be better for New England. And he was already tight end 17 last year with how bad it was. So I'm willing to take a shot on him too.
All right. So Hunter Henry is the pick. God, that was an interesting show. Not quite sure what happened.
Just draft a tight end, one of like the top 6, 7 tight ends, and don't worry about the rest.
Maybe just take some flyers. Listen, you're right. Take a top 5 tight end and then get Tyler Conklin.
Yep.
Or one of those guys. Be happy.
If you're feeling spicy, take one of the other guys we mentioned.
Like Taysom
Upside shot.
All right. Well, I'm going to put us out of our misery. And it is time for tags, where we can share any final thoughts we might have and let everybody know where they can find us or avoid us. Jamison, you are up first.
As always, I'm on the Twitter machine at Jamison Rules. We've got some DFS stuff coming up. Make an announcement on that here soon for IDP Plus. So every Sunday morning, doing lineups, answering questions, praying over your teams, all that good stuff. And then other than that, just here every week with the crew. Hopefully talking about anything after tight ends after today. But we'll see about that. But we only got a week left until NFL season?
Yes, in 2 weeks, this show will be kicking off the NFL. Not officially, but for us it will be.
Officially.
Might as well be.
Joe, what do you got?
You can find me on Twitter at JoeLow63. Currently, I am live tweeting about my IDP Invitational team, just because it's fun. I have some other stuff that I'm going to really start getting some 2025 rookie stuff going. Have some articles that will be coming out later on. And otherwise you can find me on the Rod Pod.
All right. So I'm at Jake Jay Wenner on Twitter. Thank you to everybody who joins us on the stream tonight and commented. Thank you to Sean for making us that video. Sean, I appreciate you.
That was so long. So much has happened since then. I almost forgot.
I know. Thank you to both of you for all of your hard work on this episode tonight. You should know, as we go into the season, Rider Dynasty is going to become like a Dynasty implications show. We're going to talk about, we don't want to be a run-of-the-mill show, so we're going to have a Dynasty focus. So we're going to be talking about rookies and second-year players, right, who are starting to perform and who you should keep an eye on. And then we're also going to be talking about draft-eligible college prospects who are showing up in their weekend games and who you should start watching now to get ready for your rookie drafts at the end of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Now, next week, we're going to be back here and we're going to be doing some division predictions. And then next Wednesday on the All Out Blitz with Doug Orth and me, we're going to welcome Jorge Martin from Fantasy Life to the show. And that's about it. From all of us to all of you, be safe, be well, and as always, boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.